This is a Dalarna University production.
Good morning. This is a little surreal for me, I have to be honest, because I spend the vast majority of my time now working with groups virtually. So normally I would be looking at your little faces on my computer screen, but I'm delighted to be here in person with you. And thank you for this opportunity to come and talk to you about what I see as going on in this extraordinary complexity that we currently call education and learning, and give you my view on maybe a way out in a very small way, and some ideas about a way to frame this. So I'm currently professor and chair in the Center for Distance Education at Athabasca. I've been there for 12 years. The university is new, about 35 years old. I'm also a guest professor at the moment at the Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm, in the ECE school, the Department of Learning. And we're doing some very exciting things looking at e-learning and the transition, particularly of higher education, but also K-12, to new ways of doing education. So I've been doing research since 1985, and my research is focused on education forms. And what I mean by an education form is a structure and process that brings learners to some kind of experience that will allow them to grow and change. And so everything I've done in my research since 1985 has been focused on, particularly on what the students are doing and how things, as things change around them, things change for them. So I've looked at the structure of classrooms, I've looked at both place-based and virtual. I've looked at how curricular changes can change things for students. What does instructional design really mean? What is teaching? What does that mean? Can we place it actually in the materials? Well, at Athabasca University, we think we can. We think we can replace, to some extent, that human person with materials and exercises. So in 2001, Athabasca asked me to join their research unit to answer the question, what difference can we make? What difference can this make? So while on the one hand, I'm very focused on what learners are doing, I'm also very aware of the big picture of education, where that fits in society, who it serves, how it needs to be structured and supported so that we can do the best things for those learners, who will in turn then be better citizens, have more better life chances, will be able to continue their learning and so on. So this is a big, complex picture that circles around on itself. Okay, let's consider for a moment then before I start. I haven't quite started yet. What's the relationship between the next generation learning and next generation education? So I see learning as what occurs within an individual. Education is the structure and the process that allows that to happen. And I fear that at the moment we're a little bit lost in education around the shifting sands that are happening on both those levels. But I want to suggest and ask you to consider that it's not just learning that's changing, or it can't just be learning. We talk a lot about the technology, we talk about the pedagogy, and in fact we have quite a rivalry going, I think, which can be good for change, but it's so much more than that. it isn't just the pedagogy or just the technology. It is the entire enterprise of education that we need to look at. Okay, so how are we going to frame all of this complexity? There's so much changing simultaneously for us. When Athabasca started 35 years ago, the internet was something that the military was using. I mean, it was starting to just leak out, on techie computers. But when we started looking at alternative education forms 35 years ago, there was no internet. It was just the question, what difference can we make? So it's our job. I hope that I can challenge you today to say, what role can I play in this, and what trajectory am I going to take? Where will I start in this massive change and ideas and possibilities? Where am I going to start, and what direction am I going? Because I fear that we are trying to go in too many directions at once. Why should we do this? Well, there are many quotes I could have pulled, and deciding what to leave out was very difficult. But I'll quote what Pond said a dozen years ago. And he has said to us, neither the purpose, the methods, nor the population for whom education is intended today bear any resemblance to those on which formal education is historically based. Last fall, we had a conference in Banff, Alberta, called Learning Leadership. And one of the things we talked about was death of the classroom. It's over. It's not just about the technology, although the technology will help us, but we need to rethink what education means and what the outcomes are. We aren't doing a good job anymore. And we heard that in the voices of the politicians yesterday, that there's great concern, particularly in K-12, about the outcomes that we're getting. So many things have changed, and education is one of the most stable institutions in society. That can be a good and a bad thing. It needs to be shaken at its roots. So Pond's talking about the requirement to change education. Keller, who's talking about education, and in this case, particularly higher education. But he gives us yet another point of reference, and that is that society has also changed dramatically. So I would argue long before society was changing too much, education needed to change. But now that we have the shifting sands under our feet, we also need to do that. Okay, I think that that makes sense to the group in this room. So I needed a visual designer to help me with this slide, but let me give you the point I'm trying to make here. We have a lot of questions to answer. The problem that I see is that we're trying to answer all the questions simultaneously, or we're answering one question and not thinking about the fact that we need to answer those other questions at the same time. These are questions that Athabasca has been asking all along. Which students are we talking about? What are their characteristics? How old are they? Where do they live? What's their culture? What's the sector of education? Everything is changing. So we have looked at community-based education, K-12, higher ed, the military, the workplace. What are they learning? We have some good evidence that disciplinary differences, so content makes a difference in how you make your decisions moving forward in offering learning experiences for students. And what's your purpose? This has been a great question to discuss as Athabasca has tried to help and tried to decide for themselves what to do about MOOCs. And I'm afraid to say too much about that because we could probably spend the rest of the morning talking about MOOCs. So I think looking at MOOCs, for example, we see this this dilemma where we have informal learners that we want to offer content to, but because of the way they're coming to us and the people who are coming, it's really kind of community-based, informal learning. It's not the way higher ed would normally create things. So we have these cross purposes going on. So we take a delivery method and we throw it out there, and we don't consider who are we talking about, what's our effort for. Okay, so a simple frame I'm going to offer. When we make decisions at Athabasca about where to put our efforts, and there are considerable opportunities to do many things at the moment, we want to work in 3 different camps. We want to be going places where there isn't any education, so that we can offer opportunities where there haven't been any or very little. Now, for us, because of our funding model, we have to make sure we stay focused on Canada and even on our local environment. We still have places where there isn't any education. We are also trying to solve big picture problems, social and economic issues, both at home and in other places, and we're trying to solve education problems at the same time. Second, we're looking for ways to make education more accessible and of higher quality. So we want to improve things. We want to take these new education forms, these new ideas about pedagogy, the technology, the new roles for teachers, new roles for learners, and offer it to existing education situations to make it better. That is to solve social and economic problems and to solve problems in education. And then as you move down, finally, and this is where I spend most of my time, we're looking at resolving the dysfunction in current education systems, because we have a lot of change that has to occur. And so it sort of bleeds out so that there's more work at the bottom of the table. So 2 things that will shape the cluster of content I'm going to share in these next few minutes. One is about Athabasca University and what we're doing there, and then moving forward where I think the challenges in the context are, and some ideas about what we need for leadership. Athabasca is more than a unique unimodal delivery system for university programs. We took a new view on teaching and learning and the structure of education. Our mission at Athabasca is to remove barriers that restrict access to and success in university-level studies. We want to increase quality and increase equity of education opportunities for learners worldwide. We're committed to excellence in teaching, research, and scholarship, and of being of service to the general public. So some of you know our history already. Of course, we've been around for a long time and have been asking these same questions that now the entire universe seems to be asking. We have had to struggle with being on the margins and doing things in a different way and maintaining our credibility. One of the things that was a great benefit to us in 2005 was we were accredited by the American Middle States system as the only Canadian university that can allow transfer credit to the U.S. So we have been accredited by Middle States in the U.S. That's not the whole U.S., it's just a piece, but that was great validation for us and also gave us more voice at home as well. We just very recently had fully online doctoral programs approved, and we continue to see our growth in programs and in our registration. Our growth has slowed somewhat, but but it's an uneven amount of growth now. In particular, anything that we're teaching that relates to alternative forms in education, we are, of course, getting a lot of press there and a lot of interest. So I work in the Center for Distance Education, and some of the names on this list I know that you know already. Our unit is responsible for identifying those social and economic problems that we think are amenable to an education intervention. It's our unit that's responsible for continuing to identify the education problems and doing research and looking for solutions to solve those problems. The person who talked about mobile learning yesterday, I'm sure, knows Mohammed very well. They work together. Muhammad Ali is the UNESCO chair on mobile learning and has done extensive research in the area. Terry Anderson's a familiar name to all of you. My work at the moment is primarily on leadership and education change. So not everyone on the list is famous, but everyone on the list is looking at education change and ways to support the change, both for other institutions and municipalities, countries, and so on that are working on that change, as well as trying to push the idea that we have to do research, we have to be evidence-based, we have to be careful moving forward so that as we go, we are doing the things that we said we're going to be able to do, and the quality is maintained. We never... we work in a virtual laboratory because all of our students are online, and we have the opportunity to test a lot of the things that we're thinking about. We don't use our students as guinea pigs, and we think that that's really important. So we're trying to stay focused on the ethics of all that we're doing and ensure that there is evidence-based changes that go on rather than just ideas, oh, let's try some of this or let's do some of that. Oh, I didn't mention George. If you haven't heard about George Siemens, you should Google him and read his blogs. He's one of our major innovators. Okay, so let me take these three categories and tell you about some of the projects that we're working on in each area. Building education where there isn't any. Dr. Susan Bainbridge just graduated from our doctoral program. Susan said things have to change in Nepal, and she went there and started hanging out. Now she lives there, and she is involved in a project to develop an open university in Nepal. She also worked on an infrastructure to offer mobile devices to remote rural Nepalese so that they could have access to information that would improve their everyday lives. And she rewrote some instructional design models in reference to Nepalese culture. Noreen Work is a current doctoral student in our program. Noreen lives in the northern reaches of British Columbia, which is the far west end of Canada, and Noreen works with Aboriginal populations to provide training around negotiating with oil companies and government agents. So Noreen and her business partner, Dan Wilton, identified a significant lack of education among Aboriginal populations in the ways of government business and oil and gas companies. And so they have created an education system that is distributed, that help the elders in Aboriginal communities learn about negotiating and learn about conflict resolution so that they have better opportunity, in particular, to protect their water, so that when things are changing and they're worried about their water systems, they know the right things to ask, they know how to access the science, and so on. This is the poster for their project. It's called The Keepers of the Water, and even the poster won an award last year. Okay, so we need to keep our focus on flexible delivery options because that we see as a keystone in access. That said, we also need to not make the flexibility so overwhelming that we're not helping students learn how to manage the amount of information coming at them. So while on the one hand we're very focused on flexibility and delivery, at the same time the development of higher order thinking and critical skills is as important. So it's more than just about content. I want to say that. All right, so we have this next category where we're very focused on the improvement of access and quality. Dr. Susan Moisey in our unit has done extensive work on information push, information offerings, opportunities for persons with developmental disabilities. She's managed the Inclusive Libraries Initiative, enhancing the access of persons with developmental disabilities to information and communication technology. I've spent much of my last few days working on the contract for this project. The university in Greece approached us to say, we feel that one of the ways that Greece can make its way out of this economic disaster is to offer new forms of education. And in order to do that, we need to have more people that understand how to think about education in new ways. This university is not allowed to offer online courses. According to the Greek government, only the Open University of Greece is allowed to offer online courses. So in order to improve access in a system that already has an education system, we are working with EMAT, the Eastern Macedonia and Thrace Institute of Technology, and we are going to offer an online master's degree of education in distance education that is just developed for them. We've been able to adjust all of our models so that it makes sense for them, and we'll work in collaboration with them. But the students will be our online students, and they'll graduate from our university, but in consultation with EMAT. Now, this is a cost recovery program. We don't expect to do this to make any money. It's in service. And what we'll be doing is training Eastern Macedonia to offer these programs because they're lobbying and their expectation is that the government will very soon lift that restriction. And that's what we hope for. So we'll likely be on a 5-year project with them, and then we will step away and they'll take it on for themselves. Okay. So now we have this next level, which is taking a look at what's currently going on and looking for remedies around that. Here's a list that I would suggest may only be a partial list. These are the pressures on higher education. And the things that we need to pay attention to, the demands for change, if you will. We can't do them all at once. Or at least if we're going to try and do them all at once, we're going to have to take small steps. So we are in the Center for Distance Education and at Athabasca regularly looking at what's going on in higher education and how can we do research and offer suggestions on how this can improve. It's also the same for K-12. The politicians that were standing here yesterday morning, I could have heard the same story from our politicians. That we have this K-12 system, there's a lot of technology that's been infused, but it's not being used. The model has not changed. And there's significant pressure on us to do things differently. Now in Canada, and again, it would take me all morning to tell you all that's going on in K-12, but we have a huge homeschool movement. We do have some schools that have already moved online, and we have charter schools and a lot of, what is it? There's a lot of differentiation that's being made across different schools, but the same problems still exist. We can't pay enough attention at this point to the numbers of children that are being diagnosed with ADD and ADHD. I checked, and I know that you know what that is. There are some online schools that are looking at remedies for this and ways to resolve it, but this is just one problem in a very big issue. And so let me say again, it's not just because the teachers won't use the technology. It's because the curriculum changes too often, the class sizes are too large. The teachers are taking B.Ed programs that are ostensibly the same as they were 25 years ago. So we have a training issue, and we have opportunities that aren't being used. We are looking for, this is a great quote that I pulled from a project that I've just recently joined. And so, again, to get underneath all of this, I want to say that we have to rethink what it is we're trying to do. And it's been said over and over again at the conference, and I'm just adding to the mix, that the new pedagogy has to be a different way of thinking about how we do education. It's not just about content outcomes anymore. It's about fostering creativity. It's about, like Dan said from Blackboard, it's about having the students produce things and to do things that are valued more than just being able to pass the test, which we know doesn't allow for content to continue to remain unless it's being applied and so on. So you get through the test, and then we're not sure what happens to the learning after that. Okay, so what have we got going in this area where we're trying to resolve the dysfunction in the current system? Curtin University in Australia has a fully online B.Ed program. Our critique to them, however, was your fully online B.Ed program still doesn't have very much about using the technology, alternative forms of education, new ways of thinking of pedagogy. So we're going to create a combined program where the students who are taking this B.Ed online also have courses in issues and trends in K-12 education, the use of technology, online forms, not just computer-assisted learning, but how do we use the internet in safe and effective ways in the K-12 classroom. So this agreement we expect to be signed in the next couple of weeks, and we hope within the next year to be offering this combined B.Ed online program that is training for teachers who want to teach in online environments as well. Because of our homeschool movement, we actually have some pretty strong online schools in Alberta. We don't have enough teachers. And so one of the principals said to me the other day, when the administration from the online schools are in my school, I'm afraid they're stealing my teachers. Because we have a lot of interest and teachers who are interested in doing it, but there's little opportunity for training. The Alberta Distance Learning Centre is where students who are in regular programs can go to do some of their work at a distance. They use Desire to Learn and have tutors that assist the students. But these are most of their students are in face-to-face classrooms, so this is an augment to what they're already doing. So their teachers have a somewhat unique role because they are supporting the other teachers who are helping the students face-to-face. This particular agency gets a huge number of requests every year from teachers, pre-service, in-service, asking them for more information. So we have just signed an agreement with them to help develop professional learning programs for the K-12 teachers that will be certified through Athabasca University. And I understand, I heard this just before I left Canada, that the minister is about to change the teaching requirements so that the K-12 teachers will be required to have training in the use of technology. There, I'm just letting you read this. At the Learning Leadership conference that we had last fall, where we were talking about death of the classroom, we did start to talk about all of the things that are possible. And then, of course, we get to all of those things that are possible, and then we start saying, well, who's going to pay for it? How are we going to train? And so on. So it's systemic. We need to ask the questions at a starting point and then make sure that we are very careful. We are taking care of everything along the way. We concluded at the end of that conference that there are ways to do this, to change education and improve what it is we're doing without having to spend huge amounts of money. That's just not going to be possible. If we sit around waiting to have the money to make these changes, it's not going to happen. What we have to look for are ways to access what we already have, what's available. It's I use the phrase, it's becoming bricoleurs. It's a French term for a handyman, one who can take whatever is in front of them at the time and make something happen with it. And my challenge to you is that that's what we're going to have to do. I want to stop there because if I don't, I won't have time to hear from you. So,
a warm hand for Martha.
Thank you.